Can we stop using our school system as a welfare distribution network? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I mean, we talk about why scores are so low. There's been a lot of research that's been done on standardized test scores that peaked in America around 2012, 2015, and have been on a steady slide since before COVID, so don't be blaming COVID on this. And I think one of the reasons is the focus of the schools isn't on education at all. They're more worried about all the welfare and handouts that could be had. They're worried about football and stadiums and having a giant $800,000 jumbotron. They're worried about all these social justice issues or having sex books in the library. Like, what about math? Can we focus on math? What are we doing here? And one of the things that I think is just a bright, shining example of how public schools have lost their way and need to be abolished immediately. Our news partner, WFAA, was telling you about the free school lunches, even when there's no school, even during the summer.
And starting today, Fort Worth ISD is serving free summer meals to kids. Breakfast and lunch is being served at 20 different campuses. The meals are available to all kids, not just those within Fort Worth ISD. And the district will serve them Monday through Thursday until July the 2nd. You can find a list of schools serving free summer meals on our website, WFAA.com.
Did you hear that? This is for all kids. You don't have to be in Fort Worth ISD. It didn't sound like there was any means testing to it. So even if you're a billionaire, you can go get breakfast and lunch. It's not even just one meal. It's 2 of the 3 meals a day. What are we doing? Are you doing 2 math classes a day as well? Or are you just doing handouts? I am sick and tired of this idea of we've got to give free food to all the kids of the world. Because it's sort of that same mindset where the people were griping. It's like, well, you cut U.S. aid, and now the hundreds of thousands of kids on the other side of the planet have died. Really? Because we didn't give them a global warming coloring book? They died? Not believable. Look, if all these kids are going to starve unless we take money from you, run it through the government, and give them free food, I think we need to go have a chat with their parents. I think if we have kids who are going to starve if we don't give them 2 free meals a day at your expense, whether you like it or not, CPS should go visit the parents. That is the parents' job. You're supposed to feed your kid. You can't afford to feed your kid? My God, we already have food stamps. We already have welfare handouts. We already have food that's so cheap. Food has never been cheaper in human history. It has never been easier to be able to feed yourself. You realize, like, up until about 100 years ago, more than half of all the money that you made went to feeding yourself and your kids? You probably realize that. You probably realize it's down in the single digits now. How much money do you, out of your total income, how much of it is used to feed yourself? 7% maybe? Yeah. More than half my money goes to like house, car payments, credit card payments, medical debt. I probably spend about as much on streaming subscriptions as I do food in any given day. But I cannot stand this. We should not be giving free school lunches and breakfast and lunches during the summer. You don't have to be in Fort Worth ISD. It's not mean tested. This is just a flat out giveaway. What is the point of this? Does this make any kid smarter? Does this make any kid more educated? Because if it doesn't, then the school should not be doing it. We should not be using education funds for welfare purposes. You should, at some point, could these people possibly be responsible for feeding their own kid? I find this completely unacceptable. And this is a school district that had to be taken over by the state because their results are so damn bad. Now, let me go to the other side of this argument. We spend all this money on programs for the poor and needy and special needs and learning and disability and second language and foreigners. How much do we actually spend on the smart kids? This is something that kind of ticks you off if you were one of the smart kids growing up. Were you in the GT classes here in Texas in public schools growing up? That's all they had for you, a GT class. Once a day, y'all all had English together, and maybe every once in a while you do special projects. We also had an academic decathlon team at my school. No big attention was paid to it. No big pep rally, no spectators, no homecoming. no praise, no big stadium, no bumper stickers, no coverage in the news. So I think about 90% of what public schools do has nothing to do with education. There's a lot of sports in there. There's a lot of band. There's a lot of theater. There's a lot of field trips. But how much time do we actually spend on the special kids, the smart kids, the ones that are actually going to drive us into the future, that are going to keep us as the hyperpower of the world? The Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the Tim Cooks, the Steve Jobs. What do we have for them? Almost nothing. And it makes no sense that we're bending over backwards, spending millions of dollars, accommodating the least among us, and almost abjectly ignoring the cream of the crop, ignoring success, ignoring achievement. Ayn Rand talked about this on Phil Donahue in 1979, and she was a little more abrasive about it than me.
The newest proposals of having special millions spent on subnormal children and on the handicapped, including those so-called kneeling buses, is the attempt to bring everybody to the level of the handicapped. And if it's merely an issue of a physical handicap like a broken leg, which doesn't affect the mind, that would be a little more excusable. So I don't believe that such privileges should be granted to any group. But it includes the mentally retarded, which is the subnormal, the children who are unable to learn, so that at the end of spending thousands or millions of taxpayers' money, you're left with a half-idiot who may learn to read and write, may. On the other hand, there are no special schools, or very, very few, for gifted children. And to pass up the gifted, on whom all our lives depend. If it weren't for intelligent people, well, read Atlas Shrugged, what would happen to us without the better mind, who are able to survive and who carry the weight of everybody else? Yet we don't spend any money on them. We do everything.
Well, there's...
All right. No, we should not be giving out free school lunches, breakfast and lunch during the summer. That is an abject misalignment of the priorities of our education system and an absolute abuse, innate fraud of education dollars. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, let's get you caught up on the Iran situation. I think I can squeeze all this in one segment. It's the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So it's been kind of a not very ceasefire thus far. And I think we've just finally said, "Oh, to hell with it. Just send in the helicopters. Here we go." All right, here come the Americans. Things are blowing up over there again. There it is. Ceasefire over. Do you want to negotiate now? Okay, what about now? Ari, what about now? This is what we're doing. We're just doing Persian whack-a-mole. But instead of those little plush moles that are popping up in the table at Chuck E. Cheese, we're waiting for the Ayatollah to pop his head up. You know, we still have no real proof of life on this guy since the bombing campaign started. We are now 3 good months into this. And we haven't heard from this guy. We haven't seen this guy. The rumors are getting really weird. Like, what was that? I think they were talking about this on Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. They come on right before me. Great show. And I think they said, like, his bottom lip got blown off. What are we doing? Can't we just, like, get some filler for him or something? Whatever the ladies are doing over in Plano these days. I'm kidding. They do that in Bug Tussle, too. It's the weirdest thing. Let's just have helium lips. But it sounds like the missiles are flying so much and so fast, and there's still so much going on, and there's still mines that are being put in the Straits of Hormuz, and we're still having problems with shipping traffic that screw it. It's no longer a ceasefire. Now, the media coverage on this, you got to take all of it with a giant block of salt. However, Donald Trump had a nice little moment of clarity here. He's in an interview with the New York Post, and they asked about a rumor that he cussed out Benjamin Netanyahu, and he said, yeah, I may have cussed Bibi.
Now, Axios reported that you had a phone call with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in which you were angry with him. You said, "Are you effing crazy? What are you effing doing? I helped you stay out of jail." Is that true? Did you speak to him in those terms?
I did. I wouldn't say angry. I was a little bit perturbed at his constantly fighting with Lebanon. You know, at some point I said, "Bibi, we got to stop this. We got to stop it."
So I like the sound of this because publicly pushing back against Bibi Netanyahu kind of goes to dispel some of that myth that we're just doing this because we're Israel's stooge, or Trump is owned by Israel, or we're at this war at Israel's behest. I don't like that, because it kind of absolves us of agency and therefore guilt, and kind of puts everything on the Jews. And I'm always suspicious of those people, rightfully so. They have a terrible record in history of doing really bad things. But also, I like the sound of that because don't you kind of cuss your friends out every once in a while? Like, are they even really your close friends if you can't tell them what the F are you doing? Are they even really? You've had close working relationships with people. You've got to be able to cuss them when they're doing wrong. Or if that's how you normally talk, you've got to be able to talk how you normally talk to people. And that level of intimacy where you can start F-bombing somebody and remain friends is actually a pretty good sign that they have a solid relationship. I don't know if I would say, maybe it's not even a happy relationship, but there's at least enough mutual respect there. Yeah, Garrett's saying that we're friends and we make fun of each other all the time. Yeah, absolutely. And some people don't get that. Some people, like when I was making fun of previous episodes of Garrett's World, they're like, "Why are you so mean to him?" I'm like, this is how friends talk. This is how guys talk. And girls get in their own bubble. If you're not around guys, or if you're hanging around with a bunch of Tallarico beta males, you probably don't hear this. But like when girls hang out, they're like, "Oh, you're so pretty. You look so beautiful. I love your outfit. Where'd you get that? Oh, your hair looks so good. Oh, who did your makeup? How much time did you spend on that?" Blah, blah, blah. They're always so nice to each other. And guys, when we meet each other or hang out together, I'm like, "Hey, Matt, I have 5 fat friends and you're 4 of them." Ah! And then we just all laugh and... Yeah, we are the South Park boys. You know, next time I hang out with Scotty because he barfed at the Stars game, I'll hand him a beer and be like, "Try not to throw up this time." We give each other a hard time. Like, we drag up old embarrassing things constantly. We're calling each other fat and ugly and stupid and bald and gray-headed. And we have so much to make fun of now that we're getting older. Because now that I have a gray beard, I'm starting to look less cool by the day. Yeah, next year I'm 50 years old. Can someone does this shotgun fit in my mouth? Really kind of, there we go. I'm ready to end it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm suicidal. I'm just saying, like, I want to see my kids grow up and I would like to dance at their weddings and stuff. But like, if I got in a car wreck on the way home, it's not that big of a tragedy. I got to live like most of my life. I got to do all the cool stuff. I got to, do my dream job here on WBAP. I get to fall in love and get married to a beautiful woman and have kids and go on the honeymoon and stuff. It's all downhill from here. The only part I'm going to be missing out in is, shrinking and getting weak and getting arthritis and having to wear a diaper, or who knows where I'm going to end up before this is all done. Anyway, getting off track. Thanks a lot, Garrett. But the Iran situation, just as predicted by a lot of people on the James Show for the last 2 weeks, going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I don't expect it to get better like within a week or two. I was always kind of holding out hope that one day they could just bring up and be like, hey, we've got a deal done. We're going to go get the uranium, and in exchange, they're going to get a giant pile of money or something to that effect. And we were going to at least try and work toward the resolution there. We're not even like taking steps in that direction. So not only is it not better, it's getting worse. It's going to get worse than this before it starts to get better after that. All right, coming up next on the James Show, the story of Henry Nowak from the UK is something that has just been blazing across my social media feed for actually months now. And I've kind of been ignoring it because it's something that happened on the other side of the planet in England. And it's just one situation where, there's a lot of rage bait aspects to this because the racial angle and the religious angle and the immigration angle. And I just didn't want to do that. And then the body cam footage came out from the cops, and now we're going to do this. Have you heard this story? This is everything lefty activists wish the George Floyd story had been, except the racial component is reversed. I promise I'm not doing this to rage bait you. I'm doing this to show you how far systemically anti-white racism has gotten. The horrible story of Henry Nowak next on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. This next story is kind of odd in the fact that it has a bunch of white right-wingers in the streets complaining about racist police. That's not the norm, right? You're listening to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I'm talking about the story of Henry Nowak in the UK. You know, it has some echoes of big stories. Like it's being compared a lot to George Floyd. Cops responded. There's a racial angle to it. A guy died in custody while he was handcuffed. And cops seem to be a little inattentive to his mortal situation. But the reaction to it has been quite curious because the victim in this one happens to be a white fella. And the guy who did the stabbing is an immigrant of color. Matt Walsh has the full summary here. This will take about 3 minutes, but this is a solid summary.
So Henry Nowak was an 18-year-old white man living in Southampton, England. And on December 3rd of last year, as Nowak was walking home alone, he walked past a foreigner named Vikram Digwa. This is a man whose family was allowed into England as part of the country's open borders agenda. Nowak began recording Digwa with his cell phone and asked in a lighthearted tone whether he was a bad man, which was an apparent reference to the fact that Digwa was visibly in possession of a large dagger in a sheath that was attached to his belt, which was over the outside of his clothing. And just for context, in England, citizens are not allowed to carry a knife of any kind, even a bread knife, because it's too dangerous. But if you identify as a Sikh and you've got the little turban around your head, then you're allowed to carry any knife you want. You can carry a sword. And I'm not making that up. Section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act of 1988 states that, quote, "It shall be a defense for a person charged with having an article with blade or point in public place to prove that they had the article with them for religious reasons." So as someone who can't even carry a bread knife outdoors without a permit, Nowak was probably surprised to see the large knife on Digwa's belt, because after all, even for Sikhs, it was an unusually large blade to display. In response to Nowak's question, though, Digwa began moving towards Nowak and stated that indeed he was a bad man. He was furious that he was being filmed, and he apparently believed that his faith was being disrespected or something. So he grabbed Nowak's phone. Now, what happened next is not entirely clear because were no witnesses, and the phone was knocked away. But authorities concluded that a physical altercation broke out in which Digwa's turban may have been touched, God forbid. And within seconds, Digwa pulled his dagger from its sheath and stabbed Nowak in the chest. It was a deep cut, roughly 8 centimeters beyond the skin, and hit a critical vein behind Nowak's collarbone. And though that wound was fatal by itself, Digwa didn't stop there. He proceeded to stab the 18-year-old twice in the upper leg, once in the groin area, and once in the face. So he butchered this kid, basically. And the fact that Nowak had no defensive wounds on his hands indicated that Digwa's first strike had incapacitated him, but Digwa kept stabbing him anyway. Now, Digwa, by contrast, had no injuries whatsoever. He filmed Nowak as he fled, mortally wounded over a fence into a nearby yard. Digwa shot close-ups of Nowak's face as he was drowning in his own blood, videos that still have not been released to the public by authorities, by the way. And instead of rendering aid, Digwa began mocking his victim as he was dying. He told onlookers that he hadn't stabbed Nowak at all, and that Nowak had called him racial slurs. Digwa's brother, Gurpreet, called the authorities and informed them that they had been, quote, attacked racially.
All right, let me play you that in English. It's called 999 calls instead of 911. Let me just play you the first 10 seconds of this.
Police emergency.
Yeah, we just been attacked by someone racially. Yeah, this.
We've been attacked by someone racially. So the cops run up. And in the body cam footage, when the cop first gets there, Henry Nowak is being held up against the wall by what I think is Digwa's dad. And he's like, I have to hold him up because he keeps falling down. Yeah, he's falling down. Your son stabbed him in the chest. He's dying. He can't stand up on his own. The cop sees that, and he is faced with two scenarios here. One guy is saying, help, I've been stabbed, I'm dying. The other guy said, he said a racial slur and touched my turban. And the cop went and put the handcuffs on the guy that was dying. Why? Because he's white. That is it. The threat of being branded a racist was somehow scarier to this cop. This is how cops have been trained. No one is saying that in the police force that the cop acted wrong or didn't follow protocol. What's worse, being murdered or being being racially offended? And so an 18-year-old white kid who was stabbed by an immigrant Sikh had handcuffs put on him and died while the cop was reading him his rights, for the most tragic and brutal and painful of ironies. He was being read his rights while he was drowning on his own blood. And on top of that, the level of the dismissive nature of the cops has people just floored. Listen to this, where you can hear, like, they tell him to get up and he can't get up. He's dying. And so they drag him out because he's kind of next to a car, and they try and pick him up and he's not coming up. So they just roll him over and start cuffing him on the ground while there's blood on the ground. He says, "I've been stabbed. I'm dying." The cop says, "I don't think you have been, mate." Really?
He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that.
And he's up
Move
here.
away, mate.
He's obviously he's fallen from there and he slipped from there.
There's other shooters left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me. He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, a little bruise.
He doesn't have
step
any
back a little bit.
injury. There's no bruise. I've got a swollen eye. No, he doesn't. So he grabbed my brother. He took my turban off. Really? And you just left it off? You didn't put it back on?
Someone flag these down.
Got this stabbed.
Right,
I've been stabbed.
there, shall we?
I was in bed asleep.
So they're dragging him out from in front of the car by his feet and still not believing him that he's hurt.
Whenever we just find out someone's attacked.
I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm.
You hear him say, "I can't breathe"? You hear him say, "I can't breathe"? Doesn't that sound familiar? I can't breathe. Weren't there entire rallies and months of riots over "I can't breathe" for another guy?
Right.
Come running around the corner.
What's happened to you, alright?
Been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
I don't think you have, mate. I don't think you have. Yeah, you might be dying. More importantly, this guy accused you of racism, so let's cuff you and read you your rights while you just die out and bleed out on the floor. Is this systemic racism? Is this white rural rage? What is this? Is this his privilege? So what might be for the first time in your life, angry right-wingers have taken to the streets of Southampton and are protesting against the racist police force. What the heck is going on? Here it is. This was today.
Racist police off our streets! Racist police off our streets! Racist police off our streets! Racist police off our streets!
You realize this is what the left fantasized about the George Floyd story. The George Floyd story, the lie, the myth that there was just an innocent guy minding his own business until he was accosted by cops who just facilitated his death from management, probably racism. No, this happened to Henry Nowak. And the actual George Floyd story actually happened to a white guy named Tony Timpa here in Dallas a couple years before George Floyd happened, but he wasn't on fentanyl. Henry Nowak wasn't on fentanyl. He didn't have meth in his system. He didn't have a whole bunch of drugs in lethal doses in his system. He doesn't have a string of felonies. He never did an armed robbery of a pregnant woman. He didn't have any illegitimate kids that he had completely abandoned, who didn't even recognize him when they saw him on the news. That was a George Floyd kid. That's your dad. Oh, really? That's what my dad looks like? Didn't know. But no one cares that he was killed by police since he's white. Did you know this story hadn't been mentioned on ABC, NBC, CBS as of yesterday? I wonder if they'll mention it now. No outrage, huh? Matt Walsh also tweeted with that video that I just played for you. There's never been anything like the Henry Nowak case where the victim is non-white and the assailant is white and the police respond the way they did. That whole combination of events could really only happen to a white person. The BLM narrative is the exact opposite of reality. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you heard Matt Walsh reference the Lawrence Herr story. I'll remind you of what that was on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, we have another chance of storms expected tonight. More storms tomorrow. How much can your roof take? James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. Listen, if you have anything wrong with your roof, if you're missing one shingle from this last round of storms, if you have any sign, if you have any big dents, it doesn't cost you anything to have Blue Ribbon come out, get on your roof, and make sure everything's okay. So give them a call. You're going to have to trust somebody with your roof at some point. Why don't you start with a company that's been doing business here in North Texas for over 30 years now? And when I say this is a family company, this is truly a family company. It was started by John and Tish, and now they've incorporated their son and his wife, the daughter-in-law, are now in the business. And like, there's other little familiar connections too, because some of the carpenters that he uses or subcontractors or that he does for recommendations on work that's not a roof. He was telling me how one of those guys, his daughter, helps with the paperwork with the insurance company of Blue Ribbon Roofing. So this really is just kind of an organic local neighbor doing the right thing for your roof. And here's the best part. He'll help you with the insurance claim. So when your roof has a problem, you got to trust somebody. Start with blueribbondfw.com. Hey, y'all remember Blonde Kamala? Her real name's Elsa Kurt. She's on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Welcome back, Elsa. Been a while. I'm doing great. It seems like you may have to do more Blonde Kamalas in the future because isn't Kamala Harris the front runner for president on the Democrat side right now? That's absolutely terrible. All right. So let's jump right into the news. I was talking about the horrible story from Henry Nowak in the UK, and it has almost the liberal wish list of what they thought George Floyd was. Here it is, some racist cops acting all racisty, and we got someone that died because of the racial prejudices of the police and their response. Now this actually happened. It seems weird that the roles are reversed. We now have white right-wingers griping about the racist police. Yeah, and there was a fair amount of blood. I watched the body cam video. I played some audio from that in the last segment. I don't recommend you watch it. It's just going to enrage you. And we're also waiting for more videos to come out because the reporting says that the guy who did the stabbing took some videos and was standing over the guy mocking him while he was dying before the police showed up. And if that ever comes out, we might see our first right-wing riot. Yeah, they're so disappointing over there. They don't even have the death penalty. We're talking with Elsa Kurt from the Elsa Kurt Show. She is formerly renowned on the show for being Blonde Kamala. I think the biggest story of the day is probably the fact that the Iran ceasefire, there's been so much missiles being exchanged that they're not even bothered calling it a ceasefire anymore. And my prediction is things are going to get worse before they get better in Iran. All right, Elsa Kurt, what's going on the Elsa Kurt Show these days? Well, I'm a big fan of your YouTube videos. So, Elsa Kurt, I got to be off tomorrow. You want to fill in for me? Okay, well, then it's settled. Elsa Kurt's going to do the James Show tomorrow. Let's act like we just did this on spur of the moment and didn't have it planned for hours. Yeah, thank you. There she is, Elsa Kurt. Follow her online. You fell in love with her as Blonde Kamala, but she has a good little show. She will, that's not a joke. She is filling in for me tomorrow on the James Show. No, I'm not fired. I'm just going to a radio conference. All right, coming up on the James Show, Lawrence Herr and a couple of other stories to put some context on the Henry Nowak tragedy. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. So the story of Henry Nowak in the UK is just now starting to ramp up, even though the story itself stretches back to December, because now the case finally went through. Now we've had the body cam footage that was released, and now a lot of the things that were speculated on for a long time have been confirmed. Now, it really takes away the impact if you can stretch it out, because if people who, when they first find out the story, are the most emotional about it, and if they get all the bad news all at once, they're more likely to act on it. But if you can stretch it out, and then they find out 6 months later that, oh yeah, the police were completely negligent. Oh yeah, they were more concerned about the perceived racial slur versus the kid dying on the ground, the guy that had been stabbed in 8 centimeters deep. I don't even know what a centimeter is, but I know that's not like a slash wound. So the interesting part about it going forward is going to see if it is covered and how it is covered. Because as of yesterday or 2 days ago when Matt Walsh made that video, ABC, NBC, CBS hadn't even touched the story. Now, are they going to have to? Because according to Newsbusters, NBC Nightly News finally reported on it last night. Now, are other people going to report on it? Because now, how are they going to report on it? Are they going to be sympathetic toward the victim? Are they going to be sympathetic toward the guy who supposedly had a racial slight hurled his way, the guy that was racially abused? Because the networks were able to keep this down and keep it suppressed as long as the body cam video wasn't public. But now that it is, they can't. So they're either going to have to address it, or if they're silent on this, then the narrative is going to be created without their input. So I'll be breaking this down. And I kind of want to break down the NBC story first, but let's see what ABC and NBC do as well, if they're going to jump on it. Or did I say that wrong? CBS? Whatever. So Matt Walsh had referred to the Lawrence Hurst story. That comes from 3 years ago. And that happened in New Orleans, in a suburb of New Orleans. There were a couple of guys that had records, and they had some illegal guns. And there's 2 black fellas, and they decided they were going to kill a white guy that day. And when I say that they decided, this isn't my speculation. This is what they have confessed to. This is what they confessed to when they were caught almost immediately after. Now, let's go back, and I'll show you how this was initially reported back in 2023 on the local news there.
Referred to as Salt of the Earth and affectionately nicknamed Peanut. That's how a Metairie maintenance worker who was shot and killed on Monday is being remembered. Today, Kenner police revealed there was no motive behind the murder of 66-year-old Lawrence Harr.
We find out later, because someone within the police force, or it might have been a prosecutor or something, leaked the truth that the guys had confessed. Like, we don't have to go through the whole, trial thing. They've already confessed and pled guilty. Well, they did almost immediately when they were picked up. And we find out over a month later that the cops were lying to you that first day. They knew immediately the motive and why they picked the guy, and that it was racially motivated. It was a racially motivated hate crime against white people. They hid that for over a month until finally the word got out online, and they had to have another press conference and try and get in front of this train.
Through some of the confession of Taj Matthews, who admitted to taking part in the homicide, that they did want to commit a murder that day, and specifically they've ruled out Hispanics, and they said it was going to be a white person.
Yep. There it is. There's an actually racially motivated hate crime, a murder. You can kind of think that maybe the girl who was stabbed to death on the train, Irana Zarutska, the Ukrainian asylum seeker, he did make a reference to the race, like, hey, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. He said it twice. You've heard the audio on the show. You could say, well, there might have been some racial animus there. You can't point at any evidence whatsoever that there was any racial motivation when it comes to George Floyd or Michael Brown or Trayvon Martin or Freddie Gray or any of the other myriad of people that they riot over. But in this one, there's no doubt. They admitted it themselves. National media pick it up? No. Well, the system, what did they do? They covered for them. The police, the government, the system. You hear a lot about systemic racism. This is systemic racism. When black people can say, I'm going to go murder white people, they go murder white people, and then the cops lie to your face about their motivation, and the media just carries the water because it fits their pre-existing narrative. Is that privilege? So that's the story that Matt Walsh was referencing, and it's just perfect. And the fact that you didn't know what he was talking about proves his point. The fact that you had never heard that story before absolutely proves his point. Now, here's another story that happened this year. And the racial angle on this. Did they even tell you the race of the people involved? This comes from Fox 5. I believe this is an Atlanta story. But this is a white woman who was raped by a black guy. This one doesn't get picked up either. Why not?
Be part of me for the rest of my life. The day that I die, I will have this scar on my neck.
Jenna Salem lives with a daily reminder on her neck of a home invasion she survived in late January. DeKalb County police say it happened along Atherton Circle. They say the alleged attacker, Derek Bernstein, apparently cut off the electricity in Salem's rental home prior to the attack.
Immediately, it woke me up from the dead sleep, heavy footsteps in my hallway. My first thing I thought was that, oh my God, someone's in my house.
Salem says she then saw the attacker, who was not wearing a mask, jump on her bed. She says the attacker told her to take off her pants. Instead, she says she used that moment to try to escape, but the front door was locked.
He grabs me with his forearm in a chokehold, and he just starts immediately strangling me as hard as he can. I can't even make a noise. I'm trying to scream for someone to hear me. I can't even make a noise.
After she fought back, Salem says the intruder told her to go into the basement, where she says she was punched several times. When she begged for her life, Salem says the intruder sexually assaulted her. Then Salem says the attacker turned her around and grabbed her in another chokehold.
Something warm and metal on my neck. And as I go up and reach, in the second I touch it and realize it's a kitchen knife, he slits.
Salem says she was then stabbed in her chest with a knife, causing a lung to collapse. She continued to fight back, eventually causing the knife to break.
And know that I can't falter. I can't be weak. I can't lose my strength in this moment.
After another struggle, Salem says she ran out her front door and got a neighbor to call for help. Medics transported her to Grady Memorial Hospital, one of the places she worked during her residency. Months later, Salem continues to recover from the attack, but now with a new purpose.
This feels so strongly that the only way that violence against women is ever going to stop happening, or that people are going to recognize that it is happening the way that it is if we speak out. When survivors can speak out when they feel comfortable and empowered to, and I do. I feel so strongly that people need to know that this happened to me.
That's wild. No mention of race, huh? That's so weird, because here's the headlines when the races are reversed and there's an injustice.
Images now circulating on social media of a black man dying after being shot by a white police officer.
The Justice Department is investigating the death of Alton Sterling, a black man shot to death by a white police officer outside a convenience store.
In the past 48 hours, 2 more American cities have been convulsed by the fatal shootings of African-American men by white police officers.
Black people, we do not hate you. This is not a white supremacist system. We're not trying to do a white supremacist system. We're not Nazis. We're not Hitler. We're not fascists. Please stop treating us like that. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. All right, coming up next on The James Show, 60 Minutes may be done for good. Good. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Well, a lot going on the James Show today. Juggling the Iran war is now back on. The ceasefire is no more. The case of Henry Nowak kind of echoes the concerns that were held at the rally against rednecks, which we'll be getting to in just a little bit on the show. That's coming up at 4 o'clock. But the Henry Nowak situation is amazing when you do add in the context. The Lawrence Herr story, the George Floyd story, the other, you can probably think of 8 different racial animus-based storylines that have caused big news in the last decade or so, really since BLM. And it's amazing which ones get chosen for hype, for riots, for protests, and which ones don't. Like, I find that just absolutely shocking, and I find that the most suspicious part of all of this. 800-288-9227. If you're just joining us, Henry Nowak is a 18-year-old in England who was stabbed to death. The guy who stabbed him called the cops, said I was racially attacked, and the cops show up. One guy is stabbed in the chest, bleeding to death, about to die. The other guy said, I heard a racial slur, and they handcuffed the guy that did the racial slur, not the guy that did the mortal stabbing. Why? Because he's white. People are actually having rallies about it. Is this going to be a turning point? Elvin in Dallas, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
How you doing, my man?
What's up, Elvin?
This is so deep, man. It's amazing. I'm a black guy, 53 years old, in law enforcement. A little while in my life. My wife's also in law enforcement, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this, but I'm known as, I'm not the most politically correct person that you would come across, because I just tell it like it is, and it's just certain elements of our society, whether they, honestly, just the black, I don't want to say black, but the black culture in itself. Not every black person, but the black culture. And they get a lot of leeway on the crimes, you know what I'm saying? And it's so obvious that it's I know if you've been in reporting, you probably heard this term before, black fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also black fatigue of black fatigue. Black people getting tired of black people. You know what I'm saying? Because
we've got to come up with a better term for it, Elvin, because black culture is not fair. Well, like Alan West is on this show on a regular basis. He's the former chair of the GOP party of Dallas County. He's clearly a black guy, been a black guy his entire life. That doesn't describe him at all. That doesn't describe Wesley Hunt. That doesn't describe my friend Chaco. That doesn't describe any myriad of people who fall in love and get married and raise their kids in wedlock and get a professional job and move to the suburbs. And so
what I mean by the black culture is that certain segment of black culture.
Ghetto culture. Say ghetto culture.
The secular world. Yeah, ghetto. That's great. But I've noticed this in there was a Hispanic guy that had a wreck on 20 and killed some people about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Fell asleep driving, killed 5 or 6 people or whatever over near Canton, Texas. And he was obviously a big guy, but obviously he was Hispanic. But his wrestling record said that he was white. And it's just not happening in Texas, it's happening all over, that minority criminals are now being listed as white in the jail system to try to skew the crime statistics. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's just not in the media. It's everywhere. They're doing it everywhere.
Yeah, well, in fact, for a lot of government agencies, if you're Middle Eastern, they count you as white. And so a lot of the terror attacks that have been done by Middle Eastern Muslims who come here and want to kill Christians, when they go back and they do the reports where right-wing terrorism has killed more people in the last 20 years than left-wing terrorism. Yeah, if you count all the angry Muslims as white, which clearly that's not white rural rage like you're describing on MSNBC. Elvin, look, you have a foot in both camps. What's your solution here? What can we do to make this situation better?
It's real simple. Just Put it out there. If we want to say white person did this to this person, say a black person did it. Just put it out there straightforward. Because obviously, man, we all know what's going on. And like I said, I've been in law enforcement before. There are certain crimes that you can tell by the crime and how it was committed and when it's committed and where it's committed. You know who did it. So we already know like what's going on pretty much. So don't skew the reporting. Don't skew the statistics. Just put it out there because everybody knows what's going on. It's not a secret.
Man, if we actually said the race like we do on some of these stories, on all the stories, it would be impossible for the black community to think white people are a problem.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thanks for calling in, bud. I appreciate it.
That's the solution.
Elvin in Dallas. Thank you, sir. I wish I controlled how everyone else reported on the news, but I don't. Coming up next, we're going to hopefully be giving 60 Minutes a big sayonara. I mean, maybe it sticks around, but hopefully it changes because the previous iteration of 60 Minutes, your entire life, has been absolute trash, and I'll prove it next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And now, coming up, one of the worst news programs to ever exist may no longer exist anymore. I'm James Parker. It's the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. 60 Minutes is a trash program. I know a lot of people out there have some sort of sentimental attachment to it just because it's something that came on after football. It's the only reason you're even aware that this thing exists. But let me tell it to you like this. 60 Minutes has done some cool stories. They have taught me some things over the years, but they only get things right if it's not important, if it's not counter to the narrative. Of all the major stories, the important stories of your entire life, they got all of them wrong. Every single one of them. I remember, as far back as I can remember, the earliest I remember 60 Minutes is like in the 80s. I was born in 77. So that's probably the first time it was on my radar. And I remember 60 Minutes in 2020 and Nightline and all of them telling you, you remember this. They were telling you the Soviet Union was a co-equal superpower to the United States through all of that. Hollywood was telling you, TV was telling you, academics were telling you, the media, news, journalism was telling you, everything from Red Dawn to Rocky IV to the Hunt for Red October. They were all acting like the Soviet Union was a co-equal superpower when in reality it was months away from collapsing. It wasn't a co-equal superpower. It was in its last few months. It was on its last leg. It was about to collapse. So they got that one wrong. You can fast forward to more recent issues. Look at what they said about Trayvon Martin when that happened. Look at how they fanned the flames of BLM and Antifa and the Occupy protesters. What was that, 15 years ago now? And they've gotten everything wrong. I mean, everything wrong. Just look at the last 10 years. They were wrong on Hunter Biden's laptop. Wow, Mr. President, you can't say that. We're not allowed to say that. You know, there's 50-something former intelligence officials that have all signed a letter saying this has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Turned out they were wrong. They lied to you about Trump's campaign being spied on. In fact, that's a story whose genesis is in 2016. And after Trump was in power for 4 years, they had the Justice Department look into it. And yes, the Carter Page warrants were doctored. The FISA warrants were doctored. And his campaign was no doubt spied on. But here it is in 2020, Leslie Stahl's pushing back on him.
The biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign.
There's no real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
No.
It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't verify
It's been totally
that.
verified.
No.
It's been, just go down and get the papers. They spied on my campaign, they got caught.
No.
And then they went much further than that, and they
No.
got caught. And you will see that, Leslie, and you know that, but you just don't want to put it on the air.
As a matter of fact, I don't know that.
She did know that. We all knew that when that interview happened. It was already a done deal. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page had already gone to court. During COVID, the greatest violation of constitutional rights in your entire life. They didn't let you have freedom of assembly. They didn't let you have freedom of religion. They didn't let you have freedom of speech. Where was 60 Minutes on that? Pushing it, supporting it, not calling it out. All these constitutional purists when it comes to redistricting maps or any of these other nitpicky subjects. Where were you at during COVID? They were pushing it. They were telling you to wear a mask, and we know from the Cochrane study that was all a lie and was fruitless. They were pushing the vaccine as if that was going to get us through COVID. And you know when we got out of COVID, you know when the emergency was lifted? When we stopped taking the vaccine. Everything they told you was wrong about COVID. So no, I'm not upset that 60 Minutes is a dumpster fire and they're having big replacements over there.
We've surveyed 2,000 healthcare individuals, physicians and nurses. We know that over 60% of the physicians said that they would get the vaccine. We know that about 40% of the nurses said that they would line up to get the vaccine.
What's your worst nightmare? We get vaccines to the American people and they don't take them. Shame on us. Hey, I was already sick. I don't need it. Shame on us.
Oh, yeah, don't take the vaccine. Shame on you. They run around with this stupid narrative that the United States is a handmaid's tale. Like we want to suppress women and have them not have equal rights, and we want to dress them from head to toe in flowing robes and a headscarf. Oh, no, wait, that's Muslims, but they pretend it's Christians when it's handmaid's tale.
Atwood's books have been banned for content deemed overly sexual, morally corrupt, anti-Christian. She told us she was particularly peeved when a recent ban came from Edmonton, Alberta, in her own country.
The government put out an edict to all school boards saying that they couldn't have any books in the library that had either direct or indirect sex. What is indirect sex?
Yeah, how about we have no sex to elementary school children? Oh, yeah, she's such a victim. She's so oppressed. Her books have been banned. That's not what a book ban is. Refusing to show obscene material to elementary kids isn't a book ban. It's called being a decent human being. It's called not being a criminal. They were appalled at the treatment of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. They ran a puff piece on him. Can you believe he's had sleep deprivation, dietary restrictions, and waterboarding? They were appalled.
I think that the cumulative effect of waterboarding and sleep deprivation and everything else that was done eventually got to him.
So what happens? Does he break down? Does he weep? Does he fall apart?
I know, the poor guy. I mean, why are we so mean to him? Just because he masterminded 9/11 and killed 3,000 of our own neighbors in the worst terror attack in American history. I mean, can't we get him some better food? What is wrong with you people? So Scott Pelley has been fired from 60 Minutes. There's been some big changes in the executive producer and whatever the heck that means. But Scott Pelley is a guy that has been with CBS News since 1989, and he told the New York Times yesterday, and he's been mocked for it ever since, on being fired. He's like, I have been in combat in Afghanistan. I've been in combat in Iraq. I've been in the war zone in Ukraine multiple times, risking my life and the happiness of my family because of my devotion to the broadcast. Oh, yeah, you were in combat because you reported on it? Shut up. That's like saying I was in the NFL because I went to a Cowboys game. I was on the same field. They let me. I had a pass. I stood on the sideline. I was pretty much a Dallas Cowboy, right? What kind of weird stolen valor is that? Yeah, you were in combat. Yeah, you really know what the grunts were going through. Flying first class, making $5 million a year, and that's not an exaggeration. $5 million a year. 60 Minutes. I'm glad you're gone. I hope the whole thing folds and they never bring it back. Coming up next, my friend Ray Ruffin is going to have some hot opinions on both the Dallas Stars and the Dallas Mavericks leaving downtown. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, professional sports is no longer going to be in downtown Dallas. I'm James Parker. This is The James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. They're the three funny guys who were on before me from 11 to 2. But this comes as not really a shock to a lot of people because there have been some animus between the Stars and the Mavericks and their combined animus against the American Airlines Center, and the rumors have been swirling. So it's no big shock, but what do we think? It looks like the Stars want to move to the side of Willow Bend Mall, and the Mavericks want to move to the side of the former Valley View Mall. All right. Hey, at least we found out what we're going to do with all these leftover malls, huh? My next guest is Ray Ruffin. You may know him previously in Dallas's Head Crack. Welcome to the James Show. I know you have some hot opinions on the Mavericks and Stars leaving. Do you think Valley View is a good spot for the Mavericks? You worked at Valley View Mall. We worked at Valley View Mall at the same time. But yeah, the station was in there. So you were. What year did that get torn down? Yes. So they knocked down the rest of the mall in 2019. The theater stayed until 2023. That sounds about right for me. But yeah, I think that is an ideal place for it because the neighborhood around it, there's not a lot of single family homes or any that are in the immediate area. But as far as the traffic, the parking, I think that's one of the best places they could have chose. Probably. Maybe be the new city hall. But okay, so you go about, I don't know, 6 exits up the tollway or so, and the Stars are looking at the side of Willow Bend Mall, which is still kind of there. It's just not doing a whole lot. I think that might be a good choice too. Like I put a question mark on that because I mean we're talking about a hockey team, so that's kind of the area you want to put it in. Wouldn't you think that's where the hockey fans are? What do you think about that one, Willow Bend Mall for the Stars? Well, the hot zips for their season ticket holders probably aren't in Oak Cliff. Okay. Name one. No, that reminds me of a bit I did on the radio. This must have been 20 years ago when I was doing Man on the Street bits where I went to a hip hop event and I was asking them if you can name one hockey player besides Mike Madonna. And nobody could. But it was funny listening to their guesses. That was fantastic. Mike Madonna? Yeah, that's all right, so here's what's going to be interesting too is this is the first time we haven't had professional sports in downtown Dallas in 40 something years. So is downtown Dallas going to suffer from this? I don't think as much as people claim. I don't think it brings that much business and commerce and steady activity to have a stadium. I mean, you have a game there like 40, maybe 80 if you count both of the teams together, and it's always at night. And so every day during lunch or whatever, these things are dead weight. Oh yeah, they had the basement arcade that was huge. I think that what plagued West End out of business is the same thing that's plaguing the rest of downtown. They just have crime. They have homeless people. They have people that are just camping out and living. You get asked for change everywhere you go. It's not safe. It's kind of crimey, and I don't know. Do we really need a professional sports team to have a vibrant downtown? Fort Worth doesn't have one, and they seem to be doing better downtown than Dallas. Yes. Very, very astute thinking there for the second level fan. All right, Ray. I think Fort Worth is still the largest city in America without a sports franchise attached to it. And do they even want one? Right. Well, you're right though. Fort Worth is on a streak. They've gained over 300,000 residents, I think, in the last 6 years since COVID. And they're, like I said, they're doing all this without a stadium, without a sports franchise, without people having their name on a jersey on TV or whatever. So I don't know. Whatever they're doing, maybe we should just leave them alone and let them keep being Fort Worth. All right. Well, Ray Ruffin, thanks for coming on the James Show. I appreciate your opinions on the Mavericks and Stars leaving downtown. How do we find your work online? All right, coming up next, we have the preliminary voting from the LA mayoral election, and this is only funny because there's a reality star in it. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, I'm having a lot of fun watching the Los Angeles mayor's race. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP, because it's a blank show, a poop show. It just doesn't alliterate nearly as well to say that. But Spencer Pratt got through the runoff, or maybe got through to the runoff, because they're doing something really fishy. There was, the thought process going into the voting yesterday. It's a three-way race. There is Spencer Pratt. He's just an evil, straight, white guy. It's like, oh, no, not an evil, straight, white Christian male. Jesus, can we do any better than that? Yeah, so the other candidates were a black female and an Indian female, or I don't know. What's ramen? Because I know ramen noodles is like Japanese, but she's not Japanese. Isn't ramen noodles Japanese? I don't know. Is that racist? Oh, crap. Am I going to have to get behind a podium again and do a public apology? Because I'm just talking about noodles here. All right. I'd like to apologize on behalf of all the samurais or ninjas or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. We're just having fun with this, right? Because the lady that's in charge now, Karen Bass, it's hard to say she's done a good job. With the fires that happened, the terrible response to the fires that have happened, the homeless problem exploding, businesses can't leave California, and more specifically Los Angeles, fast enough. There's a lot of complaints they've been having. And Spencer Pratt actually punched through. He got second place as of now. Now, there's a big asterisk next to this, and I'm putting all kinds of qualifiers on my words because they're not done counting the votes. Yes, the election was yesterday. And for all of human history until 2020, we were able to count votes on the night of the election and have an answer for you the next day. There's just been this new thing that happened since November of 2020. With all the new technology, we've lost the ability to count all our votes on election night. But no, they said we're going to keep taking mail-in ballots. Oh, even if they come on after election day? What if they come in a week late? Sure, whatever comes in, we're still counting. So a lot of us are kind of bracing and thinking, are they going to do this thing where they keep counting votes and finding new ballots until Spencer Pratt loses? It's going to be a tough row to hoe. But look, let me give you a couple of cuts of him from the campaign trail before I play you his messaging from last night. I think this is what's winning. Spencer Pratt has laid out what he wants to do about the most pressing issues and how he's going to handle it in the first 3 weeks.
First 3 weeks, signs up across the city. No more nakedness, no more drug use, no more robbing, no more
burning dogs in the street.
No more dog abuse. Yeah. On every sign, on every bar. And we're going to go around, we're going to warn everybody, hey, you got 3 more weeks of this. Like, clock's ticking. Just keep telling everyone, so the people that are aware, they're like, oh, wow, there's a new mayor in town. They may start leaving. And then when the 3 weeks, or maybe we'll even do 2 weeks, maybe people will want it faster. And then once we start enforcing the laws, boom, streets will be back. You know who else I'm going to bring in? The CDC, because there's medieval diseases in these encampments. They're not swabbing these encampments. They're not swabbing the streets. People are just living in feces and drug use and dogs burning and body. We need these streets cleaned.
Yeah.
Now, who could be against that? Well, there's a lot of people who make a lot of money and derive a lot of power off the homeless problem. And that's one of the dirty little secrets he's uncovering too. Because if someone like Spencer Pratt gets in and realizes, hey, all you got to do is go start rounding up homeless people and throw them in jail and charge them with crimes and just enforce the laws as they're written. And if you don't, of course they're going to come to your city. In fact, they're going to congregate. They're going to come from all around the country to your city. Because why? You facilitate it. Having a problem with homeless, having homeless crime, being attacked by a homeless person is a choice, a decision that is affirmatively made by the leaders of your city.
Ready for the best part? 60% of the people in Los Angeles that are experiencing homelessness, they're ready. No, they're not from California. They've been brought here by NGOs that profit off of this homeless industrial complex. Medicaid.
Wait. They've been brought here?
They've been brought here.
Who did that?
Body brokers bring these people here.
From where?
All across the country. If you're an addict, you can come to LA and
Oh.
get these rehabs and
Because
use your Medicaid. You have a social
It's
security.
also, if you're going to be, shall we say, outdoors your whole life, it's better to be here than in Minneapolis.
Yeah, love that. This was his messaging from last night. He's trying to stay on brand.
The city's failing most of Los Angeles. And now I'm in all these communities and I'm hearing everyone's issues and problems. Excuse me, sir.
Look, there was a couple of weird things he's going up against, though. Number one, how uncool is it to be a straight white male in Los Angeles these days? Remember, Los Angeles is 75% Democrat, either registered or identifying as Democrat. So he's got an uphill battle because I don't even know if he's a Republican or if he's just perceived as a Republican. But men on the street, two different men on the street bits from last week did not look well for Spencer Pratt. Because first there was a Karen Bass voter who said she's going to vote for Karen Bass because she's black and black pride.
Who do you want to win as mayor of LA?
Karen Bass.
And why Karen Bass?
Black Pride.
Black pride.
Anything else?
No.
Just that or some policies or something like that that you can share?
Nah.
So not only is she comfortable voting that way, she's comfortable enough telling a white guy with a microphone recording her on camera. That's how anti-white racism. Sorry, that's how tolerated anti-white racism is in 2026. Here's another one from a different man on the street. That last one was Nate Friedman. This is No Cap on God. There was another man on the street interview who they're voting for the other lady, Ramen Noodles, because she's Indian.
Who are you voting for?
It's Yaraman.
Why her over Bass?
Well, she's Indian and I'm South Asian.
Respect. What do you think about Spencer Pratt?
Not much.
Do you think he has a chance?
I don't know. Do you?
I mean, if people are willing to elect Trump, some people just want to vote for the white guy.
That's true.
Just because they're white.
That's unfortunate.
What do you think about that? People voting on based on race and stuff.
I think it's a kind of unfortunate because you should be looking at someone's credentials, really.
Oh, busted! You know, some people that accuse you of being motivated by skin tone, haven't you noticed a pattern that they're motivated by skin tone? Yeah, you're probably just going to vote for Spencer Pratt because he's white, and that's wrong. Who are you voting for? I'm voting for Ramen. Well, she's Indian and I'm Indian, so makes sense. I'm voting for Karen Bass. Why? Black pride. Any policies? Nope. Just the color of her skin. F white people. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Again, racism is completely tolerated by the anti-racist crowd as long as it's against you. Coming up next, Carlos Tercios from Dallas Express is going to talk about the rally against rednecks that happened in Frisco yesterday. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. So they had the rally against rednecks yesterday. Well, sort of. I'm James Parker. This is The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Coming back on The James Show from DallasExpress.com. Carlos Tercios making a return trip. Now, Carlos, I saw you talking about this earlier online. Did you actually go to the rally? All right. So I was sort of on the fence if this was going to happen at all anyway, if anything was going to happen. And then the second thing I was thinking, well, if something happens, is it just going to be this dude by himself, or does he actually have followers, or are people going to, follow the Facebook post and be on his side? Well, as it turns out, it looks like everyone at the rally but him was against him. Is that what you saw, or did he have anyone else on his side? The organizer, Zul Muhammad, is who we're talking about. Well, yeah, we had a guy that got arrested yesterday. His name's Jake Lang. He is a January 6th political prisoner who was pardoned by Trump. He ran for Congress a couple years ago. And he was here last year for the Austin Metcalf rally after Carmelo Anthony murdered him at the track meet. And he had jumped into the stadium and filmed himself in front of what he says was the blood stain for Austin Metcalf. And this is all kind of uncomfortable, but just to let the audience know, this is what the video sounded like. And it's because he made this video, they're like, well, he wasn't supposed to be there. He's trespassing. He comes back this year and he gets arrested for this video.
There's the blood stain. There is the blood stain. It's red still. Austin Metcalf's blood. Lord Jesus, help us. It's crying out for justice. His killer is home right now. I got to get out of here before the police come. I just hopped the fence to get in here. His blood is crying out for justice. We need that killer behind bars. We will not rest. We need to protect white Americans. This scourge of black violence is too much.
So the thing that probably separates Jake Lang from the typical Team Red enthusiast is his focus on race. And there seemed to be a lot of focus, not just on, hey, this guy's wrong, but a lot of white pride kind of angle on this. Well, I appreciate y'all's reporting on it over at the DallasExpress.com on Dallas Morning News. They reported on it yesterday. It says, this is the headline: Armed counter protesters outnumber attendees at Frisco City Hall rally. The subheadline says a Facebook post promoting a rally outside Frisco City Hall drew about 50 counter protesters, some armed and some displaying white supremacist messaging. No mention of racial racism, the anti-white focus of the guy who was putting on the rally. No condemnation of his. I mean, it's called a rally against rednecks. No condemnation of racism against there. They were just worried about the white supremacist messaging from some of the counter protesters. What a joke of a report. Carlos Tercios, thank you very much for being on the James Show. You can find some of his great work at DallasExpress.com. And also, he's worth a follow on Twitter if that's where you're at. Coming up next, more from the rally against rednecks on the James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, more on the sort of rally against rednecks. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The good news is there's not a whole lot of people out there who agree with the idea that we even need a rally against rednecks. I don't know if zero of them think that or if it was just only one of them felt like it was worth showing up to. But let's go through some takeaways. If you're not familiar with this storyline, there's a guy in Frisco said we're going to have a rally against rednecks, and you can show those stupid mouth-breathing, window-licking, inbred yokels that the Indian community is awesome and we don't care what they think. We don't care for their hatred and racism. It was yesterday at the entrance of Frisco City Hall, and only the organizer showed up. Now, the organizer's a piece of work. His name's Zul Muhammad. He had run for mayor of Carrollton a few years back, got busted red-handed doing voter fraud, is found guilty. Now, he's out on appeal right now, so he can still run for office, and he really should be in jail, and he might still go to jail depending on how that appeal works out. But in the meantime, this is what he does with his free time. Here's another great takeaway. It looks like you can use a racial slur against whites in a public post, and there's not going to be round criticism of the racism in that post. And then on top of that, you can go out there and you can still hold the rally with no security, with no barrier, with no guards, and no one's going to lay a hand on you. Ain't that something? How many people got beaten up by Antifa? What happened to Kyle Rittenhouse? What happened to Andy No? What happened to Nick Sorter? What happened to, and I'm naming people who have been hurt at Antifa rallies by Antifa. Well, here you have a guy that's outnumbered 50, maybe 100 to 1. He's no threat to anybody, and no one laid a hand on him. Isn't that wild? Another great takeaway. I want you to remember the story of the Stars Nazis. Remember the Stars Nazis? No, you don't remember that? Well, there were some guys, 3 guys that were filmed doing what could be considered a Nazi salute. I don't know. It could be a Roman salute. They were just doing the wrong hand gestures after the Stars scored a goal. But that kind of racism was so not tolerated in that situation. They tracked these guys down 4 months later and made sure they were never allowed into the American Airlines Center again. Meanwhile, you can have a rally against rednecks. No great condemnation by the media. In fact, they kind of hide it. Don't even mention it in the coverage of it. Go to dallasnews.com, see what they wrote up about it. And in fact, when you see the 2 stories about the rally, one of them is from the Jake Lane guy getting arrested. They made sure to say that he's a far-right guy and he's a racist and white supremacist. The case has sparked a deluge of misinformation and racist and divisive rhetoric on social media. That's a quote from Dallas Morning News about Jake Lane getting arrested at the rally. Not the rally itself. There was no condemnation or even racial acknowledgement of the nature of the rally and the reporting for it. So that's another amazing takeaway. All they really did was just go out, and when this guy started speaking, they were shouting at him. They were shouting him down, and when he tried to get louder, they got louder. Every once in a while, they break into a good USA chant.
USA! 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 USA!
Now, here's something I find I'm kind of on the fence about. There were a few people who showed up who were right-wingers they seemed to be desperate to say something bad about the people at the rally. And I think a lot of us get uncomfortable because the racial angle was pushed a little too hard. And it's very understandable because the guy's having a rally against rednecks. He's using an ethnic slur. He's specifically attacking white Americans. So if in your response you come back with the sort of a racial response, I mean, I can kind of forgive you, but I don't know. Is that what's rubbing some of these people the wrong way? From Griff TV, here's a guy named Nicky Rudd who did his summary because he went yesterday.
So here we are, guys, at what was supposed to be the anti-Indian immigration in the Frisco protest, but now you can see it's devolved into pressure cooker of Muslims protest, okay? They're all like surrounding one guy all by himself in there. How is this productive? What are we doing here? Is this gonna actually like stop Indian immigration that's taking over Frisco? Or is this actually just giving fire to the fuel of all of our enemies and making us look stupid? I would say that's probably what it's doing. Let's be smart about what we say. Let's be strategic. Let's use the political power we have to pressure those who hold government office and make them bend the law to our will to save our state and to save our country. That should be the focus. That's what we're trying to do here at Rift TV going forward.
I don't know. It's hard to condemn people for having a racial response to a racial slight, a racial insult, a rally against their race. Can we just never bring up race ever, or we look like bad guys? Because that seems like not a really fair set of rules that we're playing against. This guy can have a rally against rednecks and he's not condemned for racism. He can openly say, with using cartoon caricatures of racial stereotypes, something that would get you condemned. I would lose my job if I made a social media post like that about any other race but white people. How on earth are we going to get past this if we can't even have the same playing field? 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I think we've reached peak pride. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. I think we're past peak pride. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I mean, Pride Month was kind of understandable when it first got on your radar. Here's a whole bunch of people who live on the outskirts of society because 98% of us are straight, and they're in the little tiny minority, 2% of our neighbors who happen to be gay. And it's been awful because, you know, it's been something that a lot of people have felt the need to hide, you know, people in the closet. It's, well, you shouldn't have to be scared of your sexuality. I would really hate that if I had to hide the fact that I'm into chicks, right? And what a relief it is that I can openly talk about how, you know, Sydney Sweeney's hot or Christina Hendricks is stacked, or I can say all kinds of things and just fit into the mainstream of normal society. And I would feel awful if I had to repress that on a regular basis. And I feel like that's what our gay neighbors have had to go through their most of their lives. And so now that society is kind of liberalized and opened up, and I mean liberalized with the lowercase L, thank you very much, and opened up, it's kind of nice that they don't have to hide that anymore. In fact, they could even go have a parade and celebrate it. Cool. Well, it got way past that. Now it became an excuse for public nudity and sex acts and exhibitionism in front of kids. And then you got corporations jumping all in on it, and then they're making all these donations to these nonprofits, and it got really political really quick, and it got really everywhere really quick. And it's amazing because I think about 5 years ago, there was a survey that was taken, and if you ask people in Gen Z what percentage of the population is gay, they would say 20%. Well, it's 2%. But you can understand how, with it all in your face and the rainbow flags everywhere and allies everywhere, and every other show has a gay character on it with a gay storyline now, that it got to be too much. Well, a couple of years ago, there were some reports on NPR and CNN and some concerned woke outlets that the corporate support for Pride Month had slipped 9%. The Dylan Mulvaney thing had woken up a lot of people to the backlash of overdoing it. And then last year, 39% of corporations scaled back their Pride celebrations, their Pride recognitions. Are they having a sale? Are they having a promotion? Are they putting special end caps on the aisles of the grocery stores again? But last year, 39% of companies had scaled that back. This year, it's gone down almost another 39%. And I don't know how they calculate this, but if you go by the reporting, it seems like companies are sort of backing off of that. Now on NPR, they're lamenting this. They're like, oh, corporations are no longer our allies that they once were. And so what are we going to do about it? But I think we've reached peak pride. Rightfully so. The converse of that is, in what month do we celebrate the form of sexual attraction that keeps us from going extinct? Don't you think that might deserve a little bit of celebration? Maybe a parade? Hey, thanks for keeping the human race going. Thanks for not letting us go extinct. No appreciation there. It makes no sense, does it? Okay, well, let's look at a couple of takes on Pride Month real quick. Because Pride Month, you know, I'm not celebrating the demise of pride. I don't get any delight in this. I'm more just kind of, I don't know, shocked, surprised with how popular it got to be in the first place. Here's JP Sears. He's an influencer online who does a bunch of comedy bits. He was saying, what if we had a hetero Pride Month? What would that even sound like?
I'm hetero. As a heterosexual, this is the month that everyone should recognize and celebrate my sexuality.
Like as big as...
Which has always been a fantasy of mine. It's kind of hot. What do I take the most pride in? My values, my accomplishments, my morals, how I treat people. No. I take the most pride in where I stick my penis. Yes, I think corporations should do special hetero logos for this month. I mean, it's their job to make me feel sexually validated. And if they don't, I'll take my business elsewhere. Okay? As great as this month is, some people don't like to celebrate. They're like, oh, sexuality is something that should be expressed privately. Well, public displays of sexuality are a real turn on for me, and I need to use other people for that, with or without their consent, because it honors my bravery as a person.
Right. Shane Gillis actually had some good advice for those in the LGBT community who are looking for equal rights. You don't need to have a parade. You don't need to have a protest. What you really need is a good football team.
Like, as big as racism is in America, football. That's true. Look, there's a Disney movie, Remember the Titans, dedicated to what I just told you. The whole point of that, dude, that was one high school football season. Remember the Titans was 8 weeks. That whole town went from centuries of don't let them in our school to just oh, the high school team's 4-0. Those are my brothers. The point I'm trying to make is if you want to get rights in America, you just got to put together a good football team. If the transgenders got together and put together just a hard-nosed, run it down your throat ball club. If the trans did just 3 yards in a cloud of dust of transgenders. If the trans community could just somehow upset Alabama, everybody down there tomorrow would be like, those are some tough actually.
You think about this. What if we had a trans quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys and he won the Super Bowl? He'd be a hero. We'd all be cheering for him. Like we have a favorite trans person now. Norm Macdonald also points out something that's kind of obvious to most of us. Your sexual orientation. Is that even an achievement? Why is it treated like that?
I went to this gay pride parade, and I saw in it there were these old men and old ladies with these signs that said, "We are proud of our gay son." That's an odd thing to be proud of, because it's not an achievement, It's not like something you work all your life to be gay or anything like that. Hey, Bill, my kid, oh my God, we're proud of him, Johnny. He graduated from Harvard, now he's articling over at a law firm, and oh yeah, he loves
You pretty much fill in any word there, and it fits for the punchline. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show today. Thank you so much for hanging out. Do not freak out. I'm going to a radio conference, and I'll be gone for Thursday and Friday. We have some great fill-ins for you. Blonde Kamala, Elsa Kurt is filling in tomorrow. But whenever the rare times I miss, people send me emails and stuff. Are you fired? I'm like, I know this is a volatile job, but no, I'm not fired yet. So stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.